everyone. Welcome to the third Wise-Up webinar sessions. My name is Freya. I am the General Manager of Work in Progress here in Woodstock in Cape Town. Thanks so much for joining. I hope everyone's dried off after the most horrendous weather. Whilst we wait a few minutes to let more people join, just let me tell you a little bit more about Work in Progress, or WIP for short, and what we do here. Work in Progress is a workspace and an event space that facilitates collaboration and ideation among entrepreneurs, innovators, and thought leaders. We also have up to 30 startup companies working out of the space with roughly 115 members, which we are all missing and can't wait to welcome you all back. We have 5 fully equipped meeting rooms, we have phone booths, we have super fast Wi-Fi, we have a free car park for all of you guys, and also we have full power during lockdown, which is also another bonus. So if you are interested in becoming a member, we have 2 types of membership tiers. Drop us a message on Facebook or drop us an email on cpt@workinprogress.co.za. And let me book a tour with you guys. As always, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from, so drop us a message in the comments section, give us your name, give us a wave and say where you're tuning in from, and I'll give you a little shout out. And also, if you have any questions for our next speaker, then also just drop them there as well, and I'll answer them during the webinar. I'm very, very excited to introduce our next guest. His name is Nick Dreyer. He is the CEO of DORP and the co-founder of African footwear, VELDSKOEN shoes. I, for one, am a big fan. So Nick, welcome. It's lovely to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Freya, it's so lovely to be here, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to chat to you and to your team and to everybody that's tuned in from Absa and your greater network. I've always thoroughly enjoyed my time at WIP, and it's lovely to be speaking here, and it's a lovely opportunity for us. So thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Good. So glad that you could join us today, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you about your entrepreneurial journey and also your new passion, which is your campaigning of supporting local businesses, which is of course super important and relevant to today's narrative. So can't wait to hear about that. But let's start off. How did a hotelier and an art dealer come to selling shoes? I'd love to know.
It's the question I think I'm asked most. And before I answer it, I just want to make a statement. And I think my story and my entrepreneurial journey will prove the following statement, is that your skill sets don't necessarily have to align with your ambitions or your goals in life. And I'm living proof of that. If an ex-hotelier and / art dealer and poor art advisor can set out to create a footwear fashion brand in South Africa, then anybody can do it. And my skill sets from my previous careers certainly didn't align, but many things did. And to go from a career in hospitality and art is interesting to where I landed up, but so many things that I did in my previous career did facilitate successful points in our brand. For the first thing is, I was the general manager of a really good hotel called Element House, and what sets it apart is its passion for South Africa. It has one of the greatest South African art collections, one of the greatest South African wine collections, and anybody that came to check in at the hotel, we would go mad telling them about how amazing South Africa is, and to be a real bastion for positivity in South Africa. And the same thing with Everard Reed. It's the greatest art dealership on the continent, and it celebrates South African art. And that conversation that I had at the hotel and at the art business has really set us up in VELDSKOEN to continue a conversation about how amazing South Africa and its people are, and important mission, which is to support South African businesses, which has now become even more prevalent, although we've been we've been on our little soapbox about supporting local for 3.5 to 4 years now with VELDSKOEN. But it's amazing how this has now come toward us, and this message and this mission has become so important.
Lovely. I think that's a great narrative to start with. You started this journey, I believe, 4 years ago. Can you tell us how it began?
Yes. So I come from Pretoria, the capital of South Africa, and went to school at Pretoria Boys High with my good friend and now business partner and co-founder, Ross Zonda. And incidentally, our third co-founder, Nick Latouf, we all went to school together. So we had very similar, we understand each other, having grown up together. And how it started was, it was in a moment where two friends, I was in a car driving from Plett to Cape Town, and Ross was busy driving around he's a builder. And a conversation started around the South African team at the Olympics in Rio. And we weren't critical, but we felt as if the South African team could have looked better and more representative of South Africa, and that there was a huge opportunity that was lost for South Africa to show off in that moment. And by wearing very boring old tracksuits, had really missed an opportunity. And the conversation progressed to what would we have done? And we settled upon we probably would have done shoes for VELDSKOEN, and an unusual debate erupted about the merits of VELDSKOEN. And I had seen a really amazing pair of shoes called the pair of Brogue shoes with a bright yellow sole. And we thought maybe if we could Photoshop VELDSKOEN and see what that looked like in different colors, we'd get a feel for it. And I had a young guy that was doing it, who could Photoshop, and I messaged him and said, please just Google some shoes and put some bright soles and bright laces on. And he sent them back on WhatsApp during the same car journey. And as I saw it and Ross saw it, we knew that we were onto something. And that was the genesis. The genesis was that we wanted to think about how better represented South Africa could be. And then when we stumbled upon the way it looked, it made immediate sense to us. And then please tell us how you stumbled upon the name. VELDSKOEN. So VELDSKOEN has been a shoe descriptor. It's been a descriptive word for a shoe for the last 120 years in Africa. And the name literally means field shoe, felt shoe from the field. And it's got a lovely, rich history. We decided, maybe because we're very simple thinkers, that we wanted to simplify the name and make sure that everybody recognized it, at least in South Africa. Now we've got the challenge of telling people abroad what VELDSKOEN means. But initially we wanted to make sure it was as simple as possible. So we actually, we called the business VELDSKOEN, so that we're VELDSKOEN Pty Limited, and our brand is VELDSKOEN. Okay, so you've got your business partners Ross and Nick. You started 4 years ago, and you had a little office, a 3x3 office in Woodstock. What does your business look like today? How many people have you employed? How different does it look to now? And tell us a little bit about what's happened in between those 4 years. We've had a really interesting journey because we've kind of ended up where we began in a lot of ways. And to give you so we started off as 3 guys in a 3x3 meter office in Woodstock. And we were running the business out of there, but what was critical was that it was a digital business. We actually decided to be an audience building business or a digital e-commerce business that just so happened to sell shoes. And we built the business like that. So we've been very, very involved in understanding audience building techniques using new world technology and new world platforms, like all the way analog, which is mailers and that, all the way through to advanced ad placement on Facebook and all the rest of it. And that's how we started. Then we grew. We took on investment from an incredible business called Long for Life, which those that know Brian Joffe from Bidvest, it's his new vehicle on the JSE, and they took a stake in our business. And then we grew because we had some funding, and we built out a bigger team, and we moved into a bigger space, and we started buying more shoes and selling more shoes, and we moved into retail quite quickly, which we'll talk about. And then COVID hit, and we had kind of gone from being 100% digital centric or online centric to about, let's call it 60-40, 60 to retail, 40% to digital. And with very little exporting except for the States and the UK. And when COVID hit, we realized immediately that it would have a severe impact on the local retail economy. And so we reprogrammed the business to go back to its roots, which was to be a 100% digital business. And thankfully, retail has recovered to a certain degree, but not enough for us to have been able to rely on it. But what we did do is we went back to our roots. So we went back to telling great stories online, made sure that our content was absolutely brilliant. And it was an interesting thing because, of course, during COVID, we were all in lockdown. We couldn't be in the same room. What is amazing about VELDSKOEN in the early days is that we were never in the same room. So we went back to how we behaved 4 years ago. And to be honest, that we actually operate better. So we went from a very large 18, 20 member team, of which 10 or 12 of them were in the creative side and content creation, all the rest of it. And we went back down to a size 8, 9 team. And we just started going back to the way we operated previously. So it's an interesting arc for our business, how we've kind of gone back to where we come from.
That's interesting. I know that we've spoken about this before, but one of your major highlights, especially in the retail space, is that Woolworths started stocking VELDSKOEN, and that's actually quite a special story. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
That's, it's something that we're most proud of. One of the great challenges for any startup apparel brand in South Africa is to find their way into retail. Not just because the retailers have to accept you as a brand and start to help you to distribute your product, but because you need to become big enough to be able to fit into their ecosystem and into their distribution channel. So you have to work towards it. And the most iconic retailer in South Africa is Woolworths. And they did have a bit of a difficult reputation with local businesses, and so we felt like they were impossible to work with, not because A, we thought we were maybe not quite well prepared enough, and B, we know and knew that they have a policy of supporting they create their own brands. And that didn't take external brands in their apparel business. And then through a great friend, she introduced us to one of the senior folks at Woolworths, and had breakfast with Mr. Michael Coles. He's a great guy. And we told him the story of VELDSKOEN, and that it's easy to talk about VELDSKOEN to people. And so it just came sort of pouring out, like what our mission in life is and what we're about. And like everybody that hears the story, he said, listen, it's an amazing story, but of course we've got a really great product. Would we be interested in putting our shoes into Woolworths? And we went and did this deal where our shoes would go into their marquee stores. And not just one or two, but actually like a standalone merchandising section, which is just unheard of. And then their team was so excited because it was the first time they'd worked with an external brand. We were over the moon because, of course, we managed to get our shoes into the most recognizable blue chip retailer in the whole of South Africa. Yeah. And then we started to tell that story in the press, and that really resonated with South Africa. It was like a little bit of a success story for a small startup. And then it just went from there. And we've been doing so well with Woolworths. It's a relationship that we're very proud of. I've got to say, Woolworths has been an absolute pleasure to work with. They're an incredibly professional team. And we really do value our relationship with them.
Fantastic. And other retailers that stock you, who are they as well?
Yeah, so our partner is Long for Life, the company I mentioned that invested in our business. They own a number of retailers. They own Outdoor Warehouse specifically and Sportsman's Warehouse. And Outdoor Warehouse has been an incredible supporter of our business right from the beginning. I mentioned to you earlier, a lot of startups may not be ready to go into retail, especially in the apparel business, because retail it's a very different animal to online. And yeah. I'm always going to be grateful to Kobus Potgieter and his team at Outdoor Warehouse, because they they gave us a soft landing. We had to learn how to do retail. So it was nice to have a sort of quasi family member to let these inexperienced footwear guys come in and try and figure out how retail works. And now we've grown into we're a sizable contributor to their sales mix, and we're very pleased with that. But I'm very grateful to them for giving us a chance and letting us grow into that relationship, which is important for us.
And talking about other people giving you chances, you have a couple of quite high-profile investors. But before we get to that, we've got a couple of shout-outs to Carly from Johannesburg. Hi, Carly. Thanks for tuning in. We've got, excuse the pronunciation of this name, Sagamastaf is watching from the UAE. Lovely to have you here. And also Jess from London and Dricky from Cape Town. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. But yeah, let's talk about a certain Mr. Ashton Kutcher and Mr. Mark Cuban from America. Please tell us how on earth that happened.
Yeah, this is normally the part where people stop believing us.
I can see.
And I feel a little bit strange actually talking about it, because it does sound pretty ridiculous, and people have defaulted to the point where they say, oh, Ashton is an ambassador, but the real thing is that Ashton and Mark Cuban are actually shareholders in our business, and how that came about is incredible. The story goes like this, and this is not me coloring it in any way. This is how it happened. We were discussing, we were sitting at the end of the business day on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I can't remember, myself, Ross, and Nick, trying to figure out how to get into America. And we were trying to figure that out. It took us a couple of hours, and we almost ended the day a little bit despondent, like most people are, because getting into America is incredibly difficult. And I got an email from a guy called Steve Watts, and he said, listen, Nick, are you interested in doing business in America? I'm an ex-South African guy. I've got a company called Slide Handboards. We do digital work. And I read it and I was like, it's got to be a sign. So I phoned him up thinking he just sent the email. Turns out he was in Durban, and I'd phoned and woke up Angela, his wife, in LA at some ungodly hour. Steve says, Nick, sorry, Steve's actually in Durban visiting his parents, so please phone him in Durban. So I phoned him on his phone, and he was just such a nice guy, and we flew to Durban to have a chat with him the next day, and also to see our manufacturer. So we had a lunch with him, and we really liked them. And one of the things that VELDSKOEN has been good at is finding partners that fit our ethos and fit our mission and fit our story. And we're a very strong believer in our culture and our family orientated nature for a family business. And so we need to make sure that people are the right fit for us. And him and Angela are definitely that. A couple of months passed, and we're going through due diligence, and we've decided that we're going to do business with them, and they've decided to do business with us. And the call then came to say, listen, Nick, as part of our due diligence, we've had to disclose that we want to make this investment, and our partners in our business fund brands, when we disclosed it, would have asked if they could be included on the transaction, and they are Ashton Kutcher and Mark Cuban. And when you hear it, you just, even now, I struggle to say it. But the bottom line is that Mark and Ashton really like the shoot, and they like the story, and they like the energy, and they like the narrative, and they were interested in coming on board. And of course, that wasn't the most difficult decision in the world to make. So we said yes. And then a process of we had to go through the process of incorporating a business in America. From having a local business that incorporates into a US-based business. And of course, we've got a listed company as a partner. So when you've got a listed company as a partner in South Africa, and you've got some high-profile investors like Mark and Ashton, you invariably start a legal conversation between lawyers in two different regions, and that becomes quite a challenge, trying to make sure that everybody's comfortable and everybody understands what they're doing. And one of the great moments in our business was Ross and myself we flew to Los Angeles, actually, to where our headquarters are now, in San Clemente, which is near the city of Irvine in California. And on the plane, while we were flying there, it took us like 35 hours, there was a disagreement on one of the clauses. And when we landed, we heard that potentially it couldn't happen. So Ross and I spent 6 or 7 days, I can't remember, trying to negotiate between lawyers and lawyers and lawyers, and neither of us have any legal experience. And after 6 or 7 days, thinking that it was over, that we couldn't get this deal over the line, I remember it was about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. And of course, in South Africa, it was about 6 or 7 in the morning. And we got a message to say, the clause is approved, go ahead and make a deal. I tell you what, San Clemente is probably going to put a ban on South African guys because we painted that little town red and celebrated like there was no tomorrow. And it was an enormous moment, not just for us personally, but an enormous moment for our brand. And also, I think, for South Africa to have two high-profile guys like that attached to a 100-year-old brand, VELDSKOEN, was a remarkable moment, and we feel so blessed to have been able to accomplish that.
I mean, it's definitely set a precedent. I'm not too aware of other high-profile A-list actors who've invested in a South African shoe company, so congratulations on that. We've got a question from Lisa asking if you've met Ashton and Mark.
It's the golden question. I think I should keep it a secret. The short answer is, unfortunately, because of our back and forth with the legal, the legal finalization of our deal, we actually missed it because we had to hang around in California. But we've been in touch on the phone and on Zoom and obviously mail and all the rest of it, but mostly through their representation folks, because I mean they own a lot of businesses. But the cool thing is that both of them wear shoes, and I don't know if you've seen, but Ashton has been seen on numerous occasions wearing the shoes, and that's got nothing to do with our deal. That's just because he really enjoys wearing the shoes, and that's great. So that's fun.
That's encouraging that they actually wear the shoes. That's a good one. Okay, so it's been 4 years. You have now got a team of up to nearly 20 people. You've gone into Woolworths. You've got very high-profile investors in America. So obviously you're selling there. Where else are you selling around the world?
So we started selling in the UK actually before the American deal happened. And it went really nicely. We started an online business over there, and we realized that we could sell the shoes in the UK and into the rest of Europe from that hub. So we've got a distribution center in Luton, just outside Luton. And we also had this realization that we could sell into the different territories in the world if we could get a footprint there. So we decided on a strategy of distribution outside. So in other words, we own the US business and we own the UK business, but we decided that outside of those two territories, we would rather partner with distributors, but not in the traditional sense of a footwear distributor. We would partner with South Africans living in different countries that would want to become a distributor, and they didn't necessarily have to have experience in footwear. We believe that it's more about the people and the endeavor and the culture, and that the shoe will sell because it's a quality product. So we wanted to partner with really cool people that were passionate about the brand.
Yeah.
So the next two territories that we launched, the first one was Taiwan. Can you believe it? With our mate Jimmy, who's a South African guy living in Taiwan, and he's done incredibly well with VELDSKOEN in Taiwan. And then the one after that was Australia. And our Australian partners have done so well. I've actually just got their sales figures this morning. It's incredible what's happened there. And then we didn't rush it. We didn't rush our global distribution. We got lucky in the UK. We let build quickly because we had another high-profile moment where I don't think I can call him Prince anymore. Harry wore the shoes, and the Times of London wrote a story about it, and that ramped up the popularity of the shoe in the UK tremendously.
Yeah, tell us a bit more about the story with Prince Harry, or can we call him Prince Harry anymore? Harry.
Harry. And in fact, I mean, I'll tell you the story, but also Work in Progress and Harry and the British consulate are all kind of connected, which is interesting. So what happened was we had, yeah, so Harry, I got a phone call from the editor of the Times where I happened to be in London. And he phoned me and he said, listen, I was at a party and I saw Harry wearing a pair of Pinotage feltskin. And I was sort of out of breath having heard it. It was such an exciting moment. I said, please tell me you've got a photograph. And he said, no, that's why I'm phoning. He says, I'm hoping you've got a photograph. And anyway, we didn't have one, but Harry was wearing the shoes, and the Times of London wrote a very small piece, and it had done really, really well. I mean, we ramped up our sales tremendously. Let's then fast forward a couple of months, and you know, as you know, I've spent some time in Work in Progress, and I was invited to do a talk about feltskin and also audience building in the space, and it was hosted by the British Chamber of Commerce, and it was a fun chat, and they had some really good investors from the UK and some investor facilitators in the space, and we pitched, and I was lucky enough then to be asked to co-host a event at the British Chamber of Commerce with a very famous retailer called Andrew Jennings.
The British consulate, yeah.
The British consulate, yes. And amazing things happened out of that. But one of the net results was the consulate and the British Chamber decided that for the visit of then Prince and Princess Harry and his princess, they would that they would ask Feltskin to make them some limited edition shoes, which we did, and they got them when they were here, and we were invited to their event, so we felt very, very special, and it was an incredible thing, because the whole thing kind of started at Work in Progress, which was amazing.
Yeah, we were lucky enough. Megan came to Work in Progress. That was back in. She came and held a women's event here, which was hugely successful.
Yes.
So we've had a question from one of our guys here. His name is Evan. He has asked, where are the shoes manufactured? Now, that's actually a very, very good question, Evan. Thanks for asking that, because obviously, you know, Nick, you are a huge campaigner for Help Local Buy Local, and you actually started that hashtag Help Local Buy Local. Can you tell us where you manufacture your shoes from?
Absolutely, and it is. I think it's a nice segue into another conversation. We make our shoes in Durban at a company called Hopewell Shoes, and so our little holding company is called DORP, and we own Feltskin shoes, and we own a flip-flop brand called Plucky. But since the very beginning, we've decided that we were going to support local manufacturing. I could have made Feltskin and flip-flops in China in a second. But so there's two things that matter, right? We wanted to make a really good product. And two, we wanted to make it locally. And conventional wisdom and all the big retailers will say, no, you're wasting your time, go make it abroad, get it over and done with. You know, the margins are better, all the rest of it. But we decided we weren't going to go down that route. It took a little bit longer, but to tick the first box, which is to make a great product, we found the very best manufacturer of shoes in South Africa. Best of breed. And it's a second generational business, Hopewell Shoes. And they're a wonderful family, and they really are our partners, our manufacturing partners. And the difference it makes to be able to get on, well, now with planes it's limited, but to get onto a phone with partners there, and in fact, they've even gone so far as to put a representative in our business to talk to people in real life about manufacturing and innovation and changing our product, and is so valuable. I can't understate the value of that, as opposed to a WhatsApp message between ourselves and a guy on Alibaba. The value of a local manufacturer is just incredible. And we also make our flip-flops in South Africa with another great company called EVA. And so we decided to do that. And then, of course, now with COVID and the disruption of the global supply chain, which is very real, by the way, and also the costs involved in that supply chain disruption, lo and behold, South Africa and local manufacturing has become, I think, has got a real opportunity to grow. And if this country is going to prosper and thrive, which it should and deserves to, a key part of that is going to be to grow local manufacturing, whether that is in apparel, which is my game, or in manufacturing startups or manufacturing textiles or manufacturing anything. We're going to have to create things and make stuff if we're going to thrive. And so we have now, as you mentioned, we're kind of the poster boys for doing stuff locally, and we're happy to do that. We believe in it, and the ability to make stuff in South Africa and then to export it globally and to generate revenue outside of South Africa. It's a really positive step, and there's so many companies in South Africa that will and do and should benefit from local manufacturing. And if anybody's thinking of starting a business, I would highly recommend that you look to South Africa to create whatever product it is you want to.
No, it's a very good point. Thank you very much for supporting that. So you mentioned obviously DORP, and you've got 2 products under the umbrella of DORP. How has DORP changed since then? So you're obviously selling products, you're selling them online, you're selling them on in retail shops as well. What else does DORP do? And let's start with, what does DORP stand for?
DORP stands for Digital Online Retail Products and Platforms, and the products and platforms refers to our goods that we sell. Mm-hmm. And platforms actually refers to the combination of technologies that we have assembled, third-party technologies that we have assembled in order to create a successful e-commerce brand, platform, facilitator, distribution center. We've always, when we started VELDSKOEN, we decided to rather pick best of breed technology and let them work together in order for us to create an e-commerce business. And so DORP, that's what the platforms kind of stands for. So DORP is a product business. It's a retailer, but it acts mostly as a marketing business because, of course, we outsource our manufacturing. The advent of COVID unlocked a new opportunity out of necessity, and has introduced a third leg to what DORP does. And that just happened. That's an interesting story because it happened, like I say, completely out of necessity, yet we were very well placed to do what we set out to do. And so I'll tell you a little bit about what has now become the DORP agency.
Yes.
When we started VELDSKOEN, we had no money and no suppliers or no advice. So we just learned how to do everything ourselves. And we also didn't have any money for content creation. So we've just always taken all our photos ourselves, edited everything ourselves, our video, all the rest. So literally everything. But what happened over time, over about 3 years, is that DORP actually became an agency, but with one client, VELDSKOEN, and then Plucky a little bit later. But we had all the pieces, because we didn't outsource anything. So we had all the pieces that would contribute to those e-commerce businesses, and then later into omni-channel distribution through retail. So what happened during COVID was, of course, everything stopped. And in our group, the first challenge that had to be met was in our group. I got a phone call from some senior folks at Long for Life, and they said, listen, we want to do some TV ads for Sorbet and for Outdoor Warehouse. Can we give some advice on how to do that while everyone's in lockdown? And I said, well, that's no problem for us because we kind of do that anyway. We've been creating our own content remotely for as long as we've been alive, for as long as we've been in business. So the penny dropped that what DORP really was an agency that could create really good content and could act as a agency that could assist people in selling their products online. And that is how DORP agency was born. And today I'm very proud to say that during lockdown, we produced 3 television ads, We produced 4 or 5 radio advertisements that were flighted on DSTV and all the major radio stations. We have been advising a lot of businesses on how to get their businesses online. As you know, the tsunami effect of e-commerce in South Africa due to COVID and the lockdown has just forced every single business to think about digital and how to be in an e-commerce world. And we feel like we're well placed to be able to help on that front.
I wanted to touch on this as well. Obviously, you have been very local and you have been campaigning about helping local, and you haven't just been helping, support the narrative of supporting local, but you've actually been assisting people with their e-commerce business.
Yes.
Or, how do you separate your day? Do you spend like a couple of hours speaking to them? How much of your day is spent on DORP, and how do you find the time to speak to other people as well?
Well, as you know, day-to-day living has changed. And we immediately moved our business remotely. So weirdly, it also, doing that kind of unlocked a little bit of time. So my day job is I'm the CEO of VELDSKOEN Shoes, or DORP. And that occupies most of my time. But we've got a really great team, wonderful executive management team that makes it all work. But at the beginning of COVID, and even now, the amount of interest in our story, because I think we're relatively successful in e-commerce, and also our e-commerce business grew dramatically during COVID. People were really interested in how that happened. And we wanted to be able to share that information as quickly as possible, because it was obvious that business is going to struggle. So what I did was I went on every webinar that would have me, and I literally just gave out my email address and said, email me if you've got questions on how to get online. I don't know.
Yeah.
I may not be able to answer them, but if I can help, I will. And I ended up doing this it feels like hundreds of times. And I just allocated around an hour and a half to 2 hours a day to help people with their online ideas, or if they wanted to create a business or streamline their existing e-commerce channel. And I may or may not have all the answers. I mean, I certainly don't, but in my team, we could also seed out opportunities for people to get help. And we've been doing that. And I'm so happy that there's businesses that just didn't exist before COVID that are now in business during COVID and post-COVID, that are contributing, that are generating revenue, and hopefully will grow. And that's just, it's an incredibly important part of our economy and our recovery model for South Africa.
Great. It's great to hear. Nick, we have a question and a couple of shout outs quickly before I ask the question. So I've got Deanna from Cape Town. I've got Cleo from Cape Town. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I have another question from Dean. Hi, Nick. What are your challenges, or what are the challenges launching your own online store via selling throughout marketplaces like Takealot? Which direction would you suggest to small businesses off the bat? Own online store or marketplace?
To be honest, I would 100% work on my own online store first.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because any product that is going to be sold to anybody in this new world that we live in it's competitive. And nobody has the answer straight off the bat. Nobody knows exactly how to talk to their audience. Nobody knows exactly how their audience is going to respond to their product. Nobody knows exactly who's going to be buying their product. You might have an idea, you might have a feel for it, but invariably it's going to change. And my advice would be to definitely start your own platform, to start selling your product and find that stranger validation, and find that the way that your audience grows, and that'll put you in a better position to be successful with third-party e-com retail. Because if your narrative is correct, then you stand a better chance of a higher conversion rate on third-party retail as well, because your brand will be pushing people to, let's say, a trusted source of shopping like Takealot. But you've still got to get your story right, and you've still got to get your product brand narrative correct. So I would start, if that is the question, I would start with my own platform, definitely going to third-party retail, but I would definitely have my own.
Okay. You mentioned earlier, Nick, about that you started, completely bootstrapped VELDSKOEN when you started. How important is funding for new entrepreneurs, in your opinion?
This is one of my favorite questions, and it's also one of the most difficult to answer, because invariably the answer that I give is not the most popular answer. I'm going to answer the question by almost offering a statement, and my statement is that funding is important, but it should never be the reason not to start. Funding should not be the reason you don't start. And often, very often, people have an idea and they think, I'm going to do, that's a good idea, but they don't get going because they feel or they experience that they won't get funding, or they simply get denied funding, whether that be in the banking system through debt or equity through the VC or angel space. The denial of funding, is very normal in any startup, and it is difficult. But it shouldn't be the reason not to start. And the reason I make that argument is because invariably, if you start and you work and it grows even a little bit on its own, the likelihood of raising funding increases over time. So if you can survive and bootstrap for the longer you can do that, the likelihood of funding possibility goes up. And then, God forbid you're successful and you don't require the funding that you could have required in your own mind at the beginning of your journey. So my answer is, how important is funding? It's important. Of course, it's when you start getting scale and all the rest of it, that changes things. But I'm always at pains to tell South African entrepreneurs and startups, guys, please don't aim for the Zuckerberg experience. VELDSKOEN, our initial goal was to sell one pair of shoes a day. And we focused 100% of our energy into one pair of shoes a day. That's 30 a month. Mm-hmm. Then when you get to that point, then you go, okay, cool, I'm going to start selling 2 pairs of shoes. And then you work at that and you slave and you slog around that. And you have this very slow growth curve. And then when you get to the point where you know how to sell shoes online, that's when you take a little bit of funding and you can scale your business. But you can't get the funding and you can't scale your business if you haven't learned how to sell 1 or 2. It's that old analogy about learn how to sell eggs before you build a chicken farm, and I'm a big fan of that saying. And so I say to people, don't let funding be the reason you don't start, because not starting is no good to anybody.
Yeah. And, I see in Work in Progress every day, our members have got access to mentors, whether it's from the bank or from Absa Bank or from our rock stars, their members who work out of the space. How important are our business mentors to you? Have you had them? Do you use them? Do you recommend them? What's your thoughts on mentors?
I think, so there's 2 kinds. There's the ones that inspire you and that you aspire to be. Mm-hmm. And then there's real access and network. Those are 2 different types. I think mentorship is critical, but also access is critical. So in my world, I'll tell you, my business mentor is Paul Harris, one of the founders of First Rand. I was very lucky in life to have worked for him for more than a decade. And in terms of my value system in business, my value system is a man, and the approach to business was set by Paul, and I'm deeply grateful for his insight and wisdom. And then from a startup perspective, of course, we all read ourselves mad. So I'm a big fan of Peter Thiel. And his writing. I love that saying, which is, if you're not embarrassed by your launch, then you've gone too late. I love that, because I'm pretty embarrassed about VELDSKOEN's launch. So that kind of justifies it. But that's the sort of, that's the sort of mentorship that sort of shapes our thinking. The thing that all your startups, because you've got these great startups coming in and out of work in progress, that's a different type of mentorship. That's real life mentorship, right? That's guidance. That's holding hands and access not just to money or funding, but more access to relationships and to critical thinking and to the debunking or getting rid of administrative red tape that could hold up startups. And I often say this to people when they talk around help on Shopify, for example. Hi, I need help on Shopify. I say, please don't try and figure it out. Come to me and I will help you, just so that we can save you the time. Because there's so much wasted energy and wasted time in areas that could be solved so quickly in one conversation. And I think the work in progress environment is very good like that, because I mean, obviously you've got your financial startups and all the rest of it, but so many lessons have been learned that could be shared in a space like this. And if you've got access to that, even the non-monetary value of that is enormous.
Fantastic. I have to mention the elephant always in our webinars, which is COVID and how COVID has affected you. You touched on it briefly, but I speak about leadership, and you're very passionate about leadership. How have you led your team during the pandemic?
Yeah, okay. I think it comes down to culture and business culture, and I think COVID has forced us to really look at how we do business, and in a good way. We've always been believers. I've always strived to create happy business because we do so much of it. We spend most of our time doing our work, and so that needs to be a happy place. But it's not easy to do that because, of course, it's high impact, high performance. You're never ever going to agree with everyone, so there's always going to be debate. So the way that we've designed our culture, and I need to say this before I tell you how we reacted during COVID, is we've always measured ourselves by a couple of key measures, which relate to the way we interact with each other, how we interact with our suppliers. And those measures are that we always say that you need to be direct. No one's going to insinuate their way or sarcasm their way to anything. Let's just be direct about it. Let's have a conversation directly about what we need to do. The second thing is you need to be totally transparent. In other words, whatever the good news, bad news, just be completely transparent. The third one is to obviously trust is the key thing. Be honest, and you have to be 100% honest in business because there's no space for the other version, and we don't tolerate it. And then the last one, which is actually my favorite, is you need to be kind. And the reason I'm a big fan of be kind is because being kind invariably sets you up for success the next time you meet somebody. Because no matter how hard you go at it, and I mean, us as founders, we go at it properly, right? Like we have proper fights, but then they're debates, and we have a very good, healthy respect for each other because of our value system. But invariably, when we finish, we do so in a kind manner, which then sets us up for the next round to do so comfortably. And so we believe in those four things. What happened was with COVID, it split the team. We were always so closely knit because we were together. And then bang, we were apart. And then it's those things and the culture that you create that will impact how connected you are in a disconnected world. And when we started our Zoom conversations, we relied heavily on kind, but we also relied heavily on direct and transparency. The reason for that was because people's livelihoods are on the line. And so we were direct. We were direct about the problem. This is going to impact the business negatively. This is where it sits. This is the decisions that we're making as an executive team. And we try to deliver that news at the time, which was all bad, as you know, in a kind and fair way, which is part of our ethos. And so COVID has shook business, and it has shook teams, and it's created chaos. But out of that chaos has become real opportunity and real, I think, future proofing. So yesterday, some of our team were customer service agents. Today, they're salespeople. Yesterday, some of our folks were logistics managers. Today, they're salespeople and logistics managers. Nick Dreyer had a specific job pre-COVID. Now Nick Dreyer is a lot of other things. And I think that's the incredible thing about COVID, is that it's broadened our minds. It's made us more resilient. It's made us we've had to take initiative. We've had to be innovative. But great culture, if you've got great culture, it's actually connected teams. And the one thing I'll say is that our culture has stood us in such good stead. I believe our team now is formed in steel. I don't think we've got a team that is formed in steel, and our respect and gratitude for our customers and the fact that we've managed to connect with our customers during this time is probably setting us up for success in the future.
Fantastic. Fantastic, Nick. Thank you. I have one question from Isabelina. Can VELDSKOEN manufacture shoes from a third party, B2B, in a way that a client presents them with a shoe design and they manufacture it?
Okay, so we don't manufacture shoes, but we often recommend manufacturers to people that want to get into the footwear industry.
Okay.
And we will offer any advice to any footwear startup that wants to join the apparel world. And we've just had it recently with a company that approached us to partner. And we said, look, we don't think we're the best partner because we could just give you the advice on who to use and we will help you. But it's your thing. You should run with it. And so we'd like to think of ourselves as a conduit towards in the footwear industry. So if anybody's got a great footwear idea and needs some help on design, our doors are open and we will definitely point them in the right direction of manufacturing.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. I'm going to finalize a couple of questions now. Obviously been a long supporter of Work in Progress, although not paying, you're a non-paying member or a virtual member, and we like to call you. And what connections have you made from Work in Progress?
Listen, I mentioned access earlier.
Yes.
And Work in Progress is just an incredible conduit for access. I can tell you that our UK endeavor plus our introduction to Techie Town came through the British Chamber, which came through Work in Progress, which has been remarkable. And then, through the staff at Work in Progress, just through facilitation and conversations between ourselves and other startups has been invaluable. And it's about the ease of access and the ease of the network opportunity. I mean, you guys make great coffee. You've got super fast Wi-Fi. The whole space is sexy. So it's like a pleasure to be here, firstly, which is a great starting point. But more importantly, it's the access. It's the ability to quickly interface with somebody and say, listen, I'm trying to do something. Do you have a hack for me? Or do you know anybody? Or celebrating other people's wins? Because I mean, you guys, you've got a good track record of companies inside the space being funded. To celebrate those wins, to feed off each other's energy, to have the access to potential investors, and I mean it's like a toy shop for a VC. So it's a good place to hang out.
Yeah, you're right. We do have great coffee here.
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap up now, Nick. How has your life changed as you're now an entrepreneur? What does your average day look like? What does a day in the life of Nick Dreyer look like?
If you're asking what it's like to be in corporate and a job versus being an entrepreneur, the sheer terror of it is, is something to understand. The sheer monumental face of risk is always a problem. No, but to have your own time and to have the ability to build something and to see something tangibly grow is so rewarding and so humbling, because so much of it has nothing to do with you. In VELDSKOEN, our team is incredible. It's a high performance team, but also the impact that South Africa had on our business is amazing. So we consider ourselves the custodians of VELDSKOEN. But so that is super rewarding, and I recommend it to anybody, but it definitely comes with some more gray hair and a lot less sleep. So just understand that piece. And panic is a regular occurrence. But what does my day look like? I get up early. I'm an early riser. We've got kids, and we make sure that everybody's fed and goes to school, and then it's just banging away, making sure that you move the needle every day. Just try and move there's a great American football analogy. It's, you fight for the inches, the yards will take care of themselves. So every day is about fighting for the inches. And I think COVID has also taught us that, right? Like, fight for the small wins and celebrate the small wins, but they will add up. And like VELDSKOEN, it's a 4-year overnight success, and it'll come. But start with the small ones, man. Small wins, one shoe a day.
One shoe a day. How many shoes do you sell a day by?
Oh God. Well, it's a lot. It's a lot in South Africa. But if you had to tally it up globally, it's probably getting towards around, I don't know, 500 a day, somewhere around there.
Amazing. I had one last question for you, but also that question's been asked by another viewer from Paula. Where do you see VELDSKOEN in 5 years' time? You've had 4 years. What about another 4?
Well, we want to fulfill our mission. Our mission is to be South Africa's most recognizable global brand. We want people to recognize in VELDSKOEN and in each other the best of South Africa, its people, its places, its energy, its endeavor. And I want it to be a symbol, part of the South African lexicon, that if you see a pair of VELDSKOEN, you feel good about South Africa. The shoe is very much like South Africans. It's hard wearing. It lasts. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's fun. It can go anywhere. It fits in with a crowd. It's not too formal. It feels a lot like South Africa. And our ambition and goal and mission is to make sure that if you see a pair of VELDSKOEN in the world anywhere, whether that be in Taipei or Cape Town, that you feel a connectedness with that shoe and the person wearing it, whether they're from South Africa or whether they just know about South Africa, or that they've visited South Africa, or they've got a cousin that's South African. We want that connectivity to be alive, for people to feel positive about South Africa if they see the shoe in any way, shape, or form, Instagram, real life, whatever. And that's our mission. So where do we want to be in 5 years? In 5 years, we want to be well established as South Africa's most globally recognized brand. It's a big goal. It's a big game. It's a big ambition. But I'm certain that our team can do it. We've got an incredibly high performance team. I'm bullish about the future of VELDSKOEN, and I look forward to the next 5 years with every piece of energy that I have.
Wonderful. Nick, thank you so much for your time. We've nearly run out. We've got a minute left. How can people get hold of you if they want to?
Nick at DORP.Africa, NICK at DORP.Africa for anything. Let me say again, I might not get to it right away, but my email address is open, or if you get stuck, just go to veldskoen.shoes and reach out to us. I know we've only got 1 minute left, so I just want to take the opportunity to say how grateful I am for the opportunity to chat to you and for the opportunity to be on a platform. I've jumped at every opportunity because this is the time that we need to be talking about our businesses, talking about what's going on, and sharing and trying to communicate and trying to connect. And so any opportunity is deeply appreciated. And I'm very grateful to you and Charmaine and your team and the wonderful work that you guys do here. Please carry on. It's important stuff. So, and to the bank for supporting it. Absa's been incredible. So carry on. It's needed.
Wonderful. Nick, thank you so much. Guys, thanks so much for joining. You can watch this episode again if you'd like, or if you've missed any of the other episodes with Abe from Sun Exchange or Amanda from Pragmatica, you can go onto our Facebook page and watch them. Our next webinar, which is going to be on Wednesday, the 22nd of July, is with our very own WIP rockstar. That's Boyisa Kabaka from Hyber. I'm looking forward to that one. That should be good. But until then, have a lovely day. Enjoy the sunshine. It's a lot better than it was yesterday. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next week. Thanks.